Strong Dads wants to thank 4Speed on 50 for sponsoring today's show. If you like classic cars, great food, and a taste of Americana, you have to visit 4Speed on 50's Diner, located on Route 50 in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Stop in today for a meal and an experience you won't soon forget at 4Speed on 50's Diner. Welcome to Strong Dads. This is Merle Hutchinson alongside of Carl Andre, and we are bringing you part two of our show of what does it mean to be a good worker.
How to be a good worker. And then this one, we want to talk a little bit more heavily about how to advance yourself.
Yeah.
How to get the higher fruit on the tree. Hopefully.
Yeah. So like part one, guys, we spent the time really talking about some of the different issues that we see. I think some of them could be generational. Some of them could just be some family dynamic that didn't allow some of the fostering of work ethic and habit that we've seen maybe in the past. You mentioned in the last show pressure, and pressures have changed in our culture. Some for the good, some for the bad, but some pressure is needed, right, to a level that it pushes you to strive to be better, right? And so that was last show. Check out that last show, but we're going to get into part two today, and then part two we're going to talk about, well, now what can we actually do, right? We have this rule. You only get to complain so long, then you got to bring some solutions.
You got to bring some solutions.
Today's going to be a lot of like, okay, so what can we actually hand these guys that's going to definitely open up opportunity to improve their lot.
Well, that's it. What you just said there, too, reminds me of a saying I use a lot. Happiness is not knowing who to blame.
Yeah.
So if you're not getting what you want in life for the most part, and I want to say, God's in control, and I understand, but God tends to favor work.
Yeah.
And he tends to favor integrity, which is another word for being a good employee. Mm-hmm. And if you're being paid to work, you should work. I mean, that sounds so obvious, but to so many people, find ways not to work at work, you know, and they may even look busy. Let me touch on that real quick. One of the things, if you're going to advance, I believe, is learning to balance between what's good enough. And I don't like the term, that's good enough. But what I was taught early on, in our profession, there are two most expensive wastes of money, and that is an engineer, usually a young engineer right out of college, who tolerances things too tight. When plus or minus a quarter inch would work, and they've got a thousandth, which is really, really small if you don't know what that is. And then somebody like me who overbuilds it. So if you've got something that's supposed to look really good, polishing the inside of that is not practical.
Right.
But you'd be surprised. So if you want to be productive, you've got to strike that balance between how you produce an excellent end result,
right,
but not overdo it. And that goes all the way down through the chain.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I'll say this, there are a few workers, there's a type of workers that I've identified, and that's the person who chooses to polish the inside. They look busy. Mm-hmm. But they're doing meaningless work that's not really necessary.
Yeah.
But they're comfortable doing that, so they're doing that all day long.
Yeah.
And that's
I'm busy.
Yeah. I'm working, you know, and then you got to corral them around. But, yeah, there are people like that. So integrity is doing the job and working and doing what is profitable, what is practical.
That's a great point. You know, I can't not bring this up. How much do you think this? If you're not watching and you're listening, I'm holding up a cell phone. How much has the cell phone distracted? And I would like to be holier than thou on this, but I'm just telling you that little phone is popping. I don't ever keep my ringer on, but the vibrator's there.
Yeah.
And just through the course of the day, whether you text me, my wife texts me, like just the fact that I check that, and then my squirrel brain can take minutes to go down that. I just would hate to know what it costs, what I'm stealing from the company, so to speak.
Yeah.
But very dangerous. And of course, we know people who can scroll all day at work. Right.
We had one like that.
Yeah.
And he did it just right out in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And for hours.
Yeah.
You know, and then what I talked about in the first show, if you're a shaker and a mover, you see something like that, it really can erode you if you're not working for the Lord.
Right.
You know, you say, and one of the things you talked in the first show about not feeling like it, a long time ago, there are a lot of aspects of work that I'm not crazy about. I mean, everybody has
Like
that.
work.
Yeah. But I always looked at it and say, this is my home payment.
Mm-hmm.
This is the car. We don't drive. I drove my truck over here today. It's got 315,000 miles on it or something. We were never big on cars. But we take great vacations. So I always looked at my job and, those hours and things like that. I didn't look at it as a job per se. I looked at it as my what I call dream machine, what's making my dream machine work. So I don't know if that's a tactic, but it helped me to not look at the stuff that was right in front of me that was tedious or the minutia or just not fun, and say, this is your vacation.
Yeah.
It's not the job at that point. It's the bigger call.
Yeah. You're working on a mindset change there. So
yeah, but one of the things you just mentioned too about the phone, and I've been guilty of, especially since moms have been in the home, and I get calls from hospice and things, so I'm going to take them. But I have a rule that we have a new owner, and I don't think he's completely online with this yet. I don't think he really understands it. I look at a job and I go, this is how I attack it. What's the part I don't like the most or is going to be the most difficult? And I'm going to get that out of the way as soon as possible, because as long as it's lingering out there, I'm only working at half speed on these.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense or not.
We call that around here, eat your peas first.
Eat the peas first. Get the peas out of the way. But on top of that, I have a rule. Once I engage in something, I'm staying on it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to stay on that straight through, because I found that once you interrupt for anything, it takes you, depending on what you're doing, it may take you an hour to get back to where you were. Yep. If you stop and go do something else. So I'm kind of a butt that way. I'm on it. I'm going to do this aspect, tee it up, knock it out, and then I'm going to go on. So that is if you're one of these people that meanders around and thinks, well, I can do multitask. I'm a multitasker. My wife will tell you, I'm a multitasker, and I can do things that way, but I am lightning fast. I'm not saying that to be boastful. When I'm in the groove on something, completely focused on it, I can't be beaten. I know that's a big thing, at least in our environment. I'm not saying that there aren't people, but I have to be in that to do that. And these distractions like the phone, conversations. Oh, yeah. There are people that you have to kind of rally or corral, figure out how to, because there's people who will walk up and want to tell you everything about their life from the night before. Right. Every day. We had one like that. And you've got to figure out tactics peacefully to kind of lock that out.
Let's leave that for the lunch, the break room, whatever, but let's stay at work. Yeah, you say you're a multitasker. I am not. And that's Linda is. She's a multitasker. And I have realized I'm not. When I get on a task, like if she asks me to do anything else, I get mad. Like that butt that you talked about. I'm like, what do you want me to do here? Like, this is where my laser is. And so, and provided I can do that, I'm solid, I'm a good worker, and I get things done, and I think better. Right? Yeah. Like I'm on task. Yeah. I problem solve better. But if I get 3 or 4 different distractions, I feel like I get none of them done well. Right. So I think those who can multitask and still be efficient and good, like that's amazing. That's not me. My brain is like on or off towards task.
It used the term efficient and good. The studies show that you are more effective. Even when you think you're a multitasker and good at it, you're more effective when you focus. Yeah. And I can do multitasking. Linda, when we cook around the house, it's noticeable right away. I mean, it's just, there's a complete difference between us. But the studies show that you are more effective, and you can be good as a multitasker, or you can be great. Yeah. And I think that's the difference we're talking about here. Sometimes when you get to a certain level of ability and things like that, the differences are so small. Mm-hmm. And what we're talking about, I'm going to say something here that may not be popular. You're in competition. You're not only in today, at least in our environment, you're not only in competition with a fellow worker, because there's other studs. You're not, if you're going to be a stud, there are going to be other studs, and there are only so many opportunities. And there's only so much money to go around. Right. But the reality is, you're competing today against somebody across the pond. Somebody in Asia wants your job.
Yeah.
Somebody in Asia wants your work that you're doing, and they're willing to do it for less and things like that. So there was an era where we didn't want to have competition, just give everybody a participation trophy. You're in competition. So that last 10% or something like that, that's a dogfight for the most part. And you're in a dogfight, whether you realize it or not. You're in a dogfight. If you're in a call center, they're over in the Philippines now. If you're in a data center, those are moving someplace else. There's so many things.
Carl, we hear the complaining of that.
Yeah.
But that's not going to go away.
It's not going away.
And I'll say in our capitalistic free market country we live in, because at the end of the day, people are always shopping for cheapest priced.
Right.
And so, well, that's not fair. Buy American. At the end of the day, listen, I love all those ideas too, but at the end of the day, if I've got $50 in my wallet, I'm going to get everything I can out of that $50.
That's right.
And that's what drives these things. And that's why, like, I look at this, like, whether it's, Hispanic workers coming and doing landscaping or roofing or starting to own those businesses.
Well,
I tell my sons, like, guys, you can complain all you want, but the consumer is going to continue to get the best value out of their worker and product. And as long as if you keep fighting that, you're going to be the one unemployed and whining about it.
Right. And I think that's missed. The people, and while we're on that topic, sort of, I said in the first one, companies aren't evil necessarily. There are some, I'm sure, and owners aren't necessarily evil. But you do not realize, I'm going to say, if you're an employee, you don't realize what it takes to make something work. And that's so often forgotten. They're getting rich and everything like that. The owner of our company that just sold, he put his house on the line.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't take a check during lean times. He's taken all the risk and everything like that. So it's really tough to get anything up and running. So when you're out there playing armchair manager or armchair owner, you understand you don't have the full picture. It's a dogfight. It really is. And almost any business you're in, unless you've got a really unique patent and things, but even that, if it's profitable, there's going to be pressure on that. So it's a dogfight. And you're in a dogfight as an employee.
Yeah.
With somebody, maybe not your coworkers, because they may all be lazy, but there's somebody out here across the pond or even in this country that's looking to get that work. So
I just love watching a young guy who recognizes a trade or a skill that he has, and he's just blind to the idea that there's anything but success coming his way, because he worked. Jordan Peterson says one of the best indicators of success is intelligence. That's one of them. Okay, and
that can be measured in a lot of different ways.
Right. Yeah.
Or a couple different ways at least.
But I would push back. I wouldn't throw that away at all. But I would push back. I'll take work ethic all day, every day. I mean, intelligence helps me direct the pathway.
They're going to be tied together.
Yeah, but man, you take a guy who's learned a basic trade or skill, and he's like, I'm up before the sun, and they work. I've seen guys in the roofing world do that. I've seen guys pouring concrete do that, and they're just like, listen, I don't know a lot about a lot of things, but I know how to do this. And the next thing you know, they're the ones driving the big trucks. Yep. They're the ones having the home. You're like, wow. Yeah. That guy's a worker, and I just love seeing that stuff, because it's like we talked about in the first show. There's still plenty of opportunity, and don't even buy into that garbage that you can't make it anymore.
Right, and I'd say right now, I've been saying it for 20 years through Financial Peace. The great opportunity right now is in skilled trades, because the AI and things like that aren't going to be able to fix your furnace.
Yep.
So a lot of these jobs are going to go overseas. They're just going to go. If you're in a computer-based job, you can bet that competition we were just talking about is fierce. But on that note, one of the great influences in my life that I wish I had spent more time with was my great uncle Shorty. His name was L.R. Chapman. He was out of Tell City, Indiana, and he had a 6th grade education. He ended up in the White House having lunch or some breakfast or whatever it was with John Kennedy, and he was the local boy done good and everything like that. I asked him one time, I said, Shorty, how did you do what you did? And he said, when I was in 6th grade, I went to work as a shoveling gravel into a hopper on a construction site. And he said, I watched the operator all day long, and I've watched everything he did, and I stayed after and even learned the machine a little bit better, and I became the hopper operator. And he said, I did that with the next position in line all the way to the top of the company, then I quit and started my own. And I thought, it's such a simple idea that if you want to advance, and you're in a company where there's advancement, not every place has advancement, but if you want to take something else on, I was so blessed to have mentors, men who spoke into my life. The two men that took me under their wing and taught me at an early age when I was headed for college, and they said, it's a long story, but they and we'll probably talk about that here in a minute too, some of their principles, but they spoke into my life, and seeing that's such a simple process. What's next in line? What are the responsibilities for that? What all does that mean? What do I need to have to do that? You could literally walk your way up a chain that way just by paying attention.
Yeah.
And then finding people in that company that are willing to mentor you. There's almost always an older guy or an older person who's going to be leaving or whatever. Or if you are a stud, I use that term a lot. If you're a stud, they want their company to do good. They want their department to do good. Mm-hmm. They're going to pour their energy into you as long as you're willing to rise to the occasion.
Yeah. Well, I look at that, spent some years running races and bike races and stuff. And sometimes, especially I would just say average at those things, but I did them for recreation. And you learn very quickly, you're not that great. You're not that great, right?
It's like the high school pro or an all-star that goes to college and gets his butt creamed because it's like, oh, wow.
I was great back at high school, right?
In a small pond.
Yeah, but if you want to stay in the game, you learn to race to the next guy in front of you, right? So I'm out on the course, and I'm like, first, I don't even know where first is, but this guy here, he's 20 yards in front of me.
Yeah.
And so that becomes my laser, right? Like, okay, am I closing that gap? Am I closing that gap? And then, again, somebody's doing that behind you. You're in somebody else's view, right? So, but that whole idea with your competitive nature is, I don't need to always think about the win. I need to think about the pathway, right? How do I get further along and improve myself?
Those steps, which is what we talked about in the first video. I think it was with how people, they don't feel like working, or they feel lost, or they're not motivated because they don't know the steps. Well, the steps are there. I mean, they're there. And and again, you got to ask for a lot of things in life. If you have a desire or there's something that you want to do, you got to ask a lot of times for that.
Yeah.
It's anyway.
Let's get, Carl, to some of the different principles.
Yeah.
Some of the things that we can say without a doubt, this is going to better your lot in life, open up opportunities, and ultimately, give you the best chance. So, what are some things that you've got?
Recap from the first video: there's no committee meeting to make your life better. So you need to take the initiative. If there's a skill in your workforce, and we're looking at that next position, if it's Excel or something you need to learn, go do it. Don't wait for the company to supply that. Take the extra steps. I mean, it seems so obvious, but become more. And some of the things that I've learned too is, there's always a time. I don't know about you, but there's always a time when you're standing there, you don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. It's like you just don't know what to do, and you can stand there for hours and not come up with it. This seems so simple, but this old guy named Bill Johnson came up to me one time when I was just completely locked up, anxious, fearful. I didn't know what to do next. And it's a long story, but I'm standing there, and he walks up behind me, and he's 77 years old, and he leans over in my ear, and he goes, "Well, do something, even if it's wrong." Mm-hmm. And that sounds silly, but I learned to do whatever.
Yep.
Whatever is in your mind that you can do. I don't care if it's so minuscule. That saved me.
Yeah.
Because I learned, take whatever step you can, and then trust the next one will come.
Yeah. Paralysis through analysis is the result of not doing that, right? And people stay stuck, and then they feel defeated. And I have done entire shows on that. My dad was that 77-year-old that you're talking about. He would not tolerate you not jumping into the problem-solving process. And so his was, do something even if it's wrong, son. Do something even if it's wrong. But in saying that, the blessing that he was to us is oftentimes you do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And he didn't beat us up.
Didn't beat you up. At least you tried.
We tried. Like if you just totally created a quagmire, he'd be like, well, let's clean it up. Well, let's keep rolling. So many of us are afraid to fail at anything these days, whether it's public ridicule we get or maybe it's going to cost us. And that idea, like very few things are life and death.
Yeah.
Right? Very few things are absolute, like I'm going to die if this doesn't go right.
Yeah.
Most of them are just like an inconvenience, an embarrassment or whatever. It's like, at the end of the day, just go. Just try something. We throw some spaghetti on a wall and see what sticks. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it, that willingness, it can burn you. I mean, obviously, if you maxed out the company credit card,
I was just trying.
I was trying, and you messed up. That's not.
Give
smart.
me one more credit card.
I'm always amazed at how many I've seen this. It's like, well, if you're going out to get something that's a supply that we need, go ahead and get 5 of them because we go through this stuff all the time. We go through it all the time. No,
just get one.
He might get up. The owner might get upset. Well, how much more upset is he going to be if you make 5 trips to the store and spend 5 hours over the course of time? People don't think about the cost of time and money. At the practicality. There's those decisions are easy to me. You just get a stock of it while you're there and stick them on the shelf, and you're going to go through it. But I mean, this sounds petty, but it is really alarming to me how many people are afraid of minuscule mistakes, possibly.
Right.
That in the overall scheme of things mean nothing. Yep. They mean nothing. One of the things, this is kind of, it's out there, but people don't understand how much the average PO costs. All right? Mm-hmm. So when you take a PO in a company, let's say you're a person ordering things, you take that PO from the time you make the order to the time that the person processes it to the time that they pay. Now you think, well, I'll buy this item today, and later on, to keep the price down now, I'll do it again over here, and I'll save $50. Well, there's like $200 or $300 worth of time in processing that PO. Yeah. So having an understanding of people's time and how much is involved in the different aspects.
I'm going to get Linda to listen to this part of the show.
Why? I don't want to start anything.
Well, this is one of our jokes around our house. Linda will go to 5 different stores across town to save a nickel.
Yeah.
I'm kind of exaggerating, but not quite.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's like, and I'm like, hon, I don't care if it's $10 more here. Lock it down and let's get home.
Yeah.
Just lock it down. It really doesn't matter. But there's just that desire that she has to be frugal, right? Yeah. So it's always in good mindset. But it's like, even if I go home and lay in the recliner, it's what I want to do versus having to chase all this stuff. Yeah. So I'm right with you. So just quit worrying about the small things. Do what you need to do, and let's move on.
Yeah. And that's back to what I said in the first show. Know who your boss is, make them happy, make them feel good. There are bosses who can be weird.
Yeah, you spend too much, or
and they'll, I've seen it. Like $25, they have a fit over, and then drop $50,000, or something. So you do have that. It's first you need to know your boss. You need to know the process and look at the thing. But there are a lot of areas that you can clean up and be far more efficient in. Yeah. And help the company by not doing stuff like that, by being bold and saying, and it's just crazy to me. It's like you paid an extra $50 for shipping because you wanted to break the order up into 2 orders so it didn't look so big. That doesn't make sense. Yeah. You still need the stuff,
right?
So think. I mean, this is the thing, and be willing. So one of the things that, as far as advancing yourself, be loyal. And follow the chain of command until you absolutely can't. And I'm talking about somebody who is evil or lacks total integrity.
Right.
People, you need to be loyal. And one of the things I said, make your boss happy, make them look good. I answered to one person, and he was the head of mechanical engineering. And if he wanted something done, and I'm not proud of this, I'm not saying this is the way to do it, but I would, if somebody was standing in the way of that, I would show up in their office with these little cubicles, U-shaped cubicles. And I was bigger then, And I would literally go in and we'd have a little talk. and I was very aware that most people don't like their personal space to be invaded. So I would lay right on. I mean, we're having this conversation right here, and I'd make it clear that's just not going to happen. Or this has got to happen. I'm not saying that's the way to do it, but the principle was what my boss needed. I trusted that it was the right thing to do. That's what I work for him.
Right.
I'm doing that. And unless it's something of lack of integrity, if it's causing me to have to lie or anything like that, but short of that, I'm loyal.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go around that person because I'm not getting the results or I feel like something's not right. You start that up, you become a person like that, I think you're done.
Yeah. I want to stay on the loyalty thing for a bit because I'm right with you. I think that loyalty to the process, right? That means hierarchy of order and all these different things. But I think there's also something that I saw. I'm not sure that I see it as much now. But I would say like when I was in my mid to late 20s, it seemed like a lot of guys I knew, and I'll just say in the engineering world, this seemed to be a big deal. A lot of companies were growing and manufacturing was starting to cook back up again. And I remember guys talking about, I use each job for a stepping stone to the next job. Mm-hmm. And so they would put their time in, literally 2-3 years, with no intention of ever being there. This is only so I can get to, I always have my eyes on the next job.
Right.
And I always struggled with that because everyone is just a throwaway to you. Yeah. You are just using them for your next step. And I understand bettering yourself, and I always want to work to better myself. But at the expense of using other people, I always struggled with because that means I'm willing to basically dump on anyone if they get in my way.
Yeah, there's no loyalty.
There's no loyalty to that. And I just think long run, I'd have to, especially from a Christian perspective, I'd have to push back to say, wait a minute, like, are we honoring what we've been given? The blessing that came from that. Are we working for our boss, right, to make him better? Or is this really all about you?
Right.
And I think that comes back to bite you when it's all about you. At some point in time, someone's going to use you, and you're going to be really offended that you were used that way. So I don't know what your take on that is.
That's funny.
But I always struggle with that. It's like, no. Listen, if you're not happy in the job and it's not going well and you're not in the right place, you got to look on. You got to find that place. But the idea that, hey, I'm an engineer and I do these things, but I'm always looking at the next step, just for my sake, just for me.
I was getting out of the shower this morning. That's where I do most of my thinking. It's either there or in the windshield, behind the windshield of the car going. So this morning I was thinking about, and nobody knows who this is Fred. And years ago, 35, 40 years ago, when I moved to Cincinnati, I met him at a party with a good friend of mine, who's still a friend of mine. And he was a jumper. And his philosophy was you advance yourself by jumping companies, know. So every 2 years he was jumping companies. And I personally, I've hired people and looked at, and for me, these were higher up positions he was talking about. For me, I'd look at it and go, if somebody is jumping a lot, I'm not interested because I'm gonna put a lot of effort into them, and I'm thinking, why are you moving around so much? And I don't really want to invest in you. At a certain point, you understand there's circumstances to do it, but Fred was doing it. Unfortunately, it ended up not well.
Yeah,
he got to a point where I think his reputation preceded him, and he ended up basically unemployed for a lot of years toward the end of his life. He was much older, and he had made some good money. He had made some big money. So there's, I guess, that side of it. But I don't advocate that, and I think a lot of people who do that, this is just my opinion, they garnish their resumes in ways that may not always be so accurate. They make themselves look like more than they are because they don't have that following necessarily. It's like, I did this, and I've seen that happen, and then they go to this, and you look at their resume and you see the position. We had somebody that worked with us do that. I'm thinking that person was nothing like that. They had none of those abilities. They knew the terms, but they were trying to better. And it didn't really work out long term. You'll be found out unless
Well, the loyalty is all to yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And it's that self loyalty. And our son right now is working fast food, and he's said this multiple times, and I don't know what he's making, 10, 11 bucks an hour, which that blows my mind. But anyway, he's making that money, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to quit because this restaurant down there, they're doing $12 an hour. I mean, that's what it says right there on the sign. And I'm like, you don't have my support. You don't have my support to do that. You're moving for a dollar, and you're staying in fast food.
Yeah.
How about you work on the relationships that you have here and build something that these people might actually add to your resume. Your manager, your boss might say, hey, this guy was amazing. He was sold out to the company. He was good, versus you jumping for a dollar. And but he's I don't know what he's going to do at the end of the day, you know. But I'm like, son, it's not going to pan out well.
Well,
for a dollar.
and I say, and I may be all wet. I've been, and one of the things I want to talk about is asking for raises. But if you're a stud, I can't imagine anybody letting you get away.
Right.
If the fast food joint up the street is paying $12 an hour and you're a stud, I mean, I'm not talking about the average person that shows up. We were at a McDonald's the other day, and I thought, is everybody in slow motion? I mean, there was no enthusiasm. Yeah. You know, when you come to it's like, I guarantee you, and maybe you think, well, why would you want to do that anyway? You drop me in a McDonald's. First of all, I'm going to be unpopular. That's something I want to talk about. If you're going to be a stud, you better get ready.
Yeah.
Because most people would rather pull you down than to see you rise. And I was very fortunate early on to have to walk a gauntlet every day for 4 years. Have people who were upset because I had gotten a position that was never offered to anybody else. It was made for me. So I learned. But if you are a stud, you should be able to go to the owner or the boss and say, listen, they're paying down here. I really like working here. I like the people, everything like that. But, you know, and if they don't pony up, that would surprise me.
Well, and it might say something that you're not the stud you thought
That's the
you
other
were.
side. I said, if you're a stud, not a stud in your head, but you're a stud. So
yeah, well, let's keep rolling because time is rolling.
Yeah.
So what are some of your other?
I'll tell you the big one that I stumbled across years ago, and hopefully that's coming across here. In the Fortune 500 companies, they did a study, and it just hit me upside the head, of the presidents, CEOs. All right. What do you think was the number one and only consistent factor among all the Fortune 500 CEOs they studied for their success? I'll put it that way.
Well, the things that, I mean, I've looked at those lists many times, and one of the things I always drift on is self-discipline. Is one of the reasons why they got where they are. They keep themselves in line. They don't let their flesh and their feelings run them. So that's where I would go with that that's what they have in common. They have a lot of self-discipline.
Okay, that might not have been on the list that I read because it might not be measurable. Okay,
right.
The number one factor they said that they had in common wasn't college. It wasn't the degrees and things like that. It was a great command and broad vocabulary.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I don't care what you do in life. I don't care if you're married. I don't care if you're in a poker club. I don't care if you're in a church or you're in a job. The ability to communicate effectively. And I watch today that a lot of these people are doing texting, and they're doing these abbreviations and things like that. That talent is disappearing. Yeah, the command of the English language, and you're in sales. I don't care what I just listed there. You're in sales and marketing. Now, people always say, I was always amazed that people say, well, I don't like sales. I think you've even said that. Yeah. But in effect, you're in sales all the time. Right. When you're in the work environment and you have an idea, or you're trying to advance a project, or you're trying to flesh something out with a team of people, you may have the right idea, but if you can't express it, right, and if you can't move people, if you're going to be in leadership, you have to be able to move people. You have to be able to inspire and initiate people. And the way you do that, you can do it with a stick. That doesn't usually work very long. Right, right. Or you can do it with words. You can convey yourself in a way that people understand, integrate into and take into themselves, and then are active about it. that is a gift.
It is a gift. So I hear you completely, and I want to push back a little bit.
Sure.
Because those were the CEOs, and those guys were probably having a lot of those gifts. I work with a lot of guys who are in the trades.
Right.
One of the things they struggle with, and why they come to me, because they're maybe struggling in their marriage or whatever, is
they can't
communicate.
And that's
right?
my point. I'm not saying just CEOs. If I don't care what you're in, this is the thing. This is
develop
this.
Right, develop this. Yeah.
In fact, I'd say, maybe there's a software you need to learn. If you're one of these guys you're talking about,
right.
There might be something you need to learn that would immediately change your position. But long term, when Johnson O'Connor, one of the things they gave up there was a book of words and new words to add to your vocabulary. And so I would say the meat, if you really want to change your destiny, is to become proficient in this area. It ties everything else together, I believe.
Well, let me give some simple on this.
Sure.
This is simple. Look at people in the eye.
Oh.
In our culture, that still is revered as good, right? I know in other cultures, maybe not so much. But looking people in the eye, not staring with a dead stare, but looking people in the eye, all right? Having your head up and speaking loud enough, not yelling, but
Clear.
speaking loud enough and clear. Enunciate your words, right? Those things are huge. They are huge. When my hearing's bad anyway, and when I have a guy who won't look at me and he's kind of staring at the ground and he's mumbling, I say, well, we got to stop right here.
Yeah.
We got to stop, because I know why your wife's mad right now. I know why your marriage is struggling. And so these are things that, we would have liked to have been taught when they were 8 and 9 and 10 years old. Did your dad teach you how to shake a hand?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like my dad was like, son. And my dad, if we answered a phone, he'd grab the phone and hit you in the head with it, like, speak up, But these are things that can be taught. They don't have to be a gift. They can be taught and then practiced.
And young boys, I still shake their hands and everything. And I had not too long ago a boy just stick his hand. That's not good enough.
Yeah.
Come on, son. And I said, the whole eye contact thing. To have the confidence. And this, you have to. Sometimes I feel like we're telling people how to manipulate people. It's not that. It's that you need to project this confidence. People are drawn to that.
Yeah. Well, you're presenting what God made of you.
Right.
Versus hiding.
And that's a big responsibility. I think I don't remember the exact title, but it was called like The First 5 Seconds. Mm-hmm. And they talk about how a person's, right or wrong, a person's perception of you is formed like that. Yeah. So you walk up and put a dead fish hand in man's hand, and not look at him and not make eye contact. Right there. If you're doing that, you need to fix that. And if you need help on that, come see one of us. We'll work with you on that. But a firm handshake, not a killer, but a firm handshake and looking a man in the eye, so important from that standpoint. Now, on that, let's talk about raises. Because I've learned that
I've been going to my boss for the last year, and it's not work. So help me out. My boss is.
Yeah, I know who she is.
But I'm her boss too.
You're on your own.
She hasn't got a raise either. So
kick it back and forth. The second to the last raise I asked for, and this was on. And I'm not saying this to brag, but the second to the last raise that I asked for was on the heels of several others. I talked about in the first one buying the tutorial for $60 that made a $20,000 difference over the next 2 years of my life, which was a huge percentage. So along that way, I started going in asking for raises, and I joked because the owner of the company, I said he was getting to the point when I knocked on his door.
Here comes Carl.
When I knocked on his door, he flinched, So on the heels of that, the second to the last one, I walked in and I sat down, and I said, I think it's time for a raise. He says, so what do you got in mind? And I said, 25%.
Wow. Yeah. When you pulled him up off the floor, how'd it go?
This is what we did.
Yeah. Back and forth, just stared at each other.
And there's an old saying, he who talks first loses.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not. But so many people, I'm a believer that you need to push that envelope you'll get a sense if you're a deliverer, and I believe I am. I think that's shown that just from these kinds of things. You'll get a sense for where the pain threshold is, where it's workable for both of you. All right. I'm just going to say it again. No committee's meeting to make your life better. They're trying to do their best. They're not bad people. They're trying to put as much money in their pocket or reserves or whatever it is. I understand that. But you need to, if you are, and you're delivering and you are worth more each time you do this. Yeah. So we sat and stared at each other. I didn't say a word. It went on, and it seems like an eternity. It went on for at least a minute. Yeah. That we sat there. Too many people go into that situation, and they are not feeling confident, and they start backpedaling. They start talking and taking it away.
Well, why don't you think about it, and I'll walk out now.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah. Or that, I understand. It's not, and so he said, let me see what I can do. Yeah. Okay. And I got up and I left. And I came back. Did I tell you this?
I have heard.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good. But they haven't heard it.
It's still for you. And I came back and he said, well, we can do 15. And I said, that'll work. And I knew that was the line. Right. That was the line at that time. We're done. Right. And then he looked at me and said, it took a lot of sack. And I said, yeah. It did. Point is, though, if you are a doer, I think this is one of the areas that people, because they don't feel good about themselves or they don't believe in themselves, if you are a doer, in a workplace pretty much, if you're a shaker and a mover and you're the go-to person, I believe you need to be known, if you really want to advance in anything, right, as the person that comes through in the clutch. And there's a situation, you take it. And it's too many people, I think, just don't feel good about themselves, and they never ask. You're probably worth more than you're being paid in general.
The risk of doing what you just talked about there is, which is like, I want people to welcome the risk, and the risk is, but now I got to perform. Now they paid me this, and so now it gives your boss, he's going to watch even closer the numbers of production. And so now when he's like, you're not what you are, or what we agreed basically through the money speaking, that he can come back at you. And again, like, that's not a bad thing, because we're both rising the tides here.
This is a deal. You're making a deal with a man. Yeah. No different than if you shake his hand. You're saying, I will deliver. I deliver, and I'm going to. Yeah. So some people I hope nobody would say, well, I get to that point, then I can coast. No, that's not the deal. What you're saying there is, I'm taking on more responsibility. Right. Even in doing this, I understand what's going to be asked of me, and I accept that. So if you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to live up to your end of the bargain by being worth more, right, and being paid more, then don't do it. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's like saying, but I believe that a lot of people could better themselves in life. They're a lot with their families and their ability, like I said, with college and things like that, simply because they just have never asked. Yeah. They've just gone. And I'll say this too, and you know who he is. His initials are ZS. I won't say his name because I don't know if he'd want me to say it. Called me up and said, they're getting ready to, and I don't remember exactly how he put it, but the department's, turning over, and I don't have such and such a degree, and I won't qualify for this. And I said, and I knew him, and I said, you're a stud. And I've always told him that. I said, you're a stud. And if you're anything there like I've known you to be, those rules mean nothing. Right. A lot of companies, and this is my opinion, a lot of companies hide behind these rules. Right. So they say, well, you don't have this, that, and the other. I have seen too many times in my life people, and he ended up he's a department head or something now. I've seen too many times where it requires a degree, or it requires this, that, and the other. But if you can bring it, they'll move mountains. I mean, that's generally true.
Well, you bring something to them, right? You set their department apart, or profitability, or whatever. So I think that's really important to realize. I think we have gotten maybe a little less in the last 5 or 6 years, when we're starting to see drop in value of the college education.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to see companies say, just show me what you can do. I don't care about your degree. And we're starting to see a move back towards that, which that should encourage us to say, man, this is about me producing, and I don't have the paper, but that's fine. So.
That reminds me, I don't think it's made me the same, but I remember hearing a story about a guy watching the show Jeopardy. Do you know that story?
No, I know the show.
Yeah, he's watching He's watching the show Jeopardy, and it's like what that Ken, whatever that guy's name's on there, somebody like that. It's just bam, bam, bam. He's listening to so. And the CEO looked at the other guy. He says, "You know how much I'd pay for this? This is dated. You know how much I'd pay for a guy like that?" And the other guy said, "No." He said, "About $1,100. He said, "The price of an encyclopedia set." Just because you have a lot of knowledge,
right?
Facts and things like that, that doesn't translate into, you can't. I'll say this. I think one of the factors, you asked me in the first, what was the thing for my work ethic?
Right.
I was headed to college when it was interrupted, and I chose to be apprenticed by the two men.
Right.
I've never had a degree. And I've worked in a lot of places. I was in the engineering department, and everybody had degrees. The people that I work with where I work now, a lot of them had design degrees. I don't have a degree. So a lot of it I felt early on, I had to bring more.
Right.
I didn't have a degree to rely on. And I think sometimes people, if you're one of those people, you think the degree is going to open doors and do all this. It may open doors for you, but you got to deliver.
You got to produce.
You got to deliver. So I think for me, that was one of the things that really drove another part of that work ethic. One, I felt insecure, but two, because I didn't have a degree, I knew I had to come with more. I had to be more just to overcome people's perceptions. So.
Yeah. It's something we're going to start to wind down on some time here, but there's something I do want to bring up as another trait that I think is really important, and that is adaptability.
Oh, yeah.
Adaptability to not just flex within a certain job and role, but to take on roles that maybe are not in the job description. And I say this as simple as if you're walking through, if you're going to the bathroom and there's water all over the bathroom floor, clean it up.
The bouncing ball metaphor.
Yeah.
There's a bouncing ball, grab it.
Grab it, right. Yeah. And so a lot of us get trapped into our job description, our department, what we were hired for.
Or that's beneath me.
Or beneath me, right? All these things. And it's like, at the end of the day, if you want to make yourself, if you want to improve your lot in the corporation, in the business, whatever it is, man, if a broom needs to be grabbed, grab it. If the garbage needs to be dumped, dump it. If somebody needs some IT help and you happen to have that, again, you do have to stay in your lane. Right, I think there's a place to stay in your lane. Yeah. You're not fixing everybody. You're not the savior of the company.
Well, if you don't have any real ability in it, you better be careful.
Right, yeah. But that idea that you would go out of your lane a little bit to see a job that needs to be done, that you're capable of, and doing it. And I just think, man, this is that you become the Swiss Army knife of the corporation, of the company. And every company, every place needs a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've said that's a thing I'd formulated 35 years ago, the great somebody. There's no great somebody.
Right.
And I'd walk by a piece of trash on the ground. It's like, so there's somebody's supposed to pick that up, like the garbage people or whatever it is. That's true all the way across the board. There's no great somebody. And I was always impressed with the former owner that if the toilet overflowed, he had the mop out.
Right.
And we have a guy that's his job. That's his job. But boy, Tom would be right in there and he's cleaning up. There was nothing beneath him. He understood that you got to do everything to make it work. Yeah. So I think we've covered a great deal here.
Yeah, there's a lot. I do. There's another side too of, and maybe I'm just going to use this word, but teamwork.
Oh yeah.
Being a team player. Some of our jobs were more by ourselves, but a lot of things. A lot of jobs mean collaboration, and that idea that collaboration means you collaborate, you don't dictate. And I think if some of us that might be, we're talking about studs, sometimes the ego gets out in front, and they have to be a driver to get their way, right? And I think ultimately, if you're going to serve well, you're able to hear ideas. You're able to help use discernment and bring people to the table. Like, you should never be the smartest guy at the table, right? You should invite more people and say, well, I don't know, like, let's figure it out. So I think teamwork is huge. And I just think a lot of people who don't feel comfortable don't want to be part of the team, or they want to dictate how the whole team's going to go.
Yeah.
Like, so somewhere in that middle is just be a player in there.
Yeah. Well, and I'd say one of my faults is I don't always have patience, because I will get on a task and I know what needs to be done. And when I work with other people on that, I have to be, you got to be understanding that not everybody has the same abilities. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the great things that we fall into is we expect everybody to be the same. The two old guys that taught me said, some people are meant to be production workers.
Right.
They're just meant for that. And some people are meant to be owners, and some people are meant to be leaders, or whatever it is. When you get and you're in the heat of the moment and you got a tight deadline, we always have these tight deadlines, and you got a budget you're trying to hit. It's really easy for me at times to lose my patience and expect others to understand how I'm thinking, especially when I'm driving a job, and to go along with that. And you got to be careful about that. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes I've made over the course of what I'm doing right now is not being patient enough that way and expecting people to think, they understand what needs to be done. They don't.
Yeah.
They don't always do that.
Yeah. As you're talking, I'm thinking about being patient, but then also if you're going to agree to pull people around a table to talk, then you have to hear them.
Yep.
Right, and that's where what you were talking there triggered me. Like, if I already have my idea,
I know how this
and
needs
I know
to
how
be
to
done.
do this, but I just pulled these people around and said, "What do you guys think?" And then I really pretty much get up and figuratively walk away and go do what I want. You really broke your team. Why did you even call us?
Yeah.
So if you're going to have the team, then even at the cost, like sometimes I say in marriage work, it's like, you know what, guys, at the end of the day, there could be two ways to do something. One might be a little righter than the other, but at the end of the day, does it really matter? Choose a way and go.
Yeah.
Choose a way and go, because unity is more important than you getting your way. Unity for many jobs.
Yeah, and you want to break unity. I had a rule for all the people that work for me at Cincinnati Microwave. It's my responsibility. If one of my people failed and did something that was poor or that didn't work or was wrong, I did it.
That's right. Yeah.
And that by the same token, I didn't throw them under the bus. And I expected, and I made it very clear, that they were to answer to me and nobody else was to take them off task except my boss. Mm-hmm. So I protected them, and I made it clear that if we used to have this battle between production and engineering, and the people in production they wanted that area under their control, and they would come in and they'd try to get one of my people to do something for them. Mm. And we had a deadline. We had if it didn't shut down production, it wasn't a priority. I don't know if this makes sense or not, but I made it clear that's not your responsibility. You just, put them to me, tell them to see me, and I insulated my people, and I took the responsibility.
Right. Yeah.
If you want to bust it up, don't take responsibility. It's going back to what I think I said in the first video. Happiness is knowing who to blame. If you're one of those people that's well, it's their fault, or they didn't this, that, and the other, or if only they would do this. Especially if they're people that work for you, you're done.
Yeah.
You're toast. They'll find a way to put a knife in your back.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, you're not loyal to them.
You're not loyal to them.
Yeah.
You got to be loyal. You've got to be known as a person that's loyal from that standpoint, and take responsibility when you order something you shouldn't order, when you mess a job up, when you didn't understand the communication. You can sit and say, well, they didn't make it clearer than the other. The end result is it didn't get done.
Yeah.
Or it's, and you played a role in that, and you got to accept that. If you do that, people will trust you.
Yeah.
That standpoint.
I got one more.
Shoot.
I got one more. I'm going to use the word professionalism. I think you could probably tweak out a few different words on this, but professionalism, and professionalism to me is that idea that you you work within the understanding of being who you're called to be, and honoring, respecting that position. Okay, and so what comes to my mind with it a lot of times is, in the last 15 years, we've gotten casual business attire.
Yeah.
We've gotten very laxed with some of the things that would never cut it before.
Yeah.
And so the idea here is, you know what, I'll grow my hair as long as I want because I don't really care. And I'll wear whatever I want because, if I'm that good, you'll take me. And I caution that attitude because it's now about you, isn't it? It's about you. And so professionalism means I'm going to put the profession ahead of me, right? And so I think it's really important, unless you own the company and you want to run it your own way, when you are trying to work through, you look at what the standard is. Whatever the company has provided, here's what we want you to look like. Here's what our customers like. Here's how we want you to talk. That is your minimum that you shoot for. And if you're like, well, I'm not talking that way. Well, now it's about you. Now it's about you.
Yeah.
Right. And I really do struggle with that. It's like, I know I'm going to really step on toes here.
Oh.
But when I go into fast food and I see,
I know where you're
the
going.
crazy piercings and I see the hair and I see all this, I'm like, I'm sorry, you're representing something. And now all of that is about you. And I didn't come here to get your tattoos and your piercings. I didn't come here. I came for food, good quality food. And when you have to take the time, you won't cover that over top of your profession. I struggle with that. So I'll probably get a little feedback on that. But
we're in a whole different era, It's just I'm with you. I go in there and I'm at a burger joint and then they got the nose thing and they've got the tattoos and everything. If you're in customer service, I think a middle of the road kind of thing is, but let's just back it up. Unless you're being asked to do something immoral.
Yeah.
When you go to work for somebody, what you're saying is, I agree to do what you ask me to do.
Right.
That means you're not in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Now you may have an opinion, and I think one of the things I had on here is don't be a brown noser. And nowhere in here am I talking about being a brown noser. You may be perceived that way, but when I talk about brown nosers, I'm talking about the yes people,
right,
who are simply just being false, phony. They're not delivering. They just want to get to a role and position. I heard a guy one time being so distraught that he didn't get a management position because the other guy got to the next guy in line and sold him the cocaine instead of Don.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, that's your qualification? You think that you should have done this? So, it was those brown nosers from that standpoint that sell themselves out and be so phony and false. When I'm talking about you partner with somebody, but you still got to subvert your desires.
Yep.
If this is what they're asking you to do, you go, well, that's not really on the side. Nope, you're not in charge. Until you're signing the checks, you don't have, and that's tough. A lot of people today don't, it's like, I'm an individual and you should be, here we go, tolerant, accepting, whatever it is. I don't agree with that.
Well, and let's bring this all the way back to our Christian faith. The hardest thing about the Christian faith is submission. But submission, you're submitting, you're putting, the pride says, I am on top, I'm on the throne. And that whole idea, like, if we don't teach our kids to submit, if we don't practice submission, appropriate submission, right? Not slavery, appropriate submission, like, hey, this is your house. I'll do how you want to do in your house. This is your business. This is Christ. This is the way. He's shown the way. His way is far better than mine. I will submit. And that whole practice of submission is that humility. And I think one thing that we didn't mention in all of this, we want confidence in all of these young guys we're talking to, but we want humility. Humility comes from the idea that, are you teachable? Are you coachable?
Right.
Are you coachable? You went out and bought us a little software and you coached yourself because you wanted to learn more. But at the end of the day, if we have this arrogance of saying, I already got this, I don't really need this, you need me more than I need you, that's not who we're supposed to be as Christians.
And that, we were talking the other night, a group of us talking about there's the rich and then there's the nickel millionaires. The nickel millionaires they may have $1 million or whatever it is, but they're unstable, they're insecure, they're constantly fearful or whatever it is. They're not really rich.
Right.
I don't know if that makes any difference.
Yeah.
In the work environment, if you truly are a stud, you don't need to be arrogant, cocky, bossy, proud.
Yeah.
You just do your deal.
Do your job,
and one of the things I said in that first video that, if you're walking around going, it took me a while to realize if the owner of the company wants to pay somebody to sit there and pick their nose all day while I am busting my butt up to my arms in difficulties,
right?
That's their right.
That's the parable of the crop workers,
the
right? The vineyard workers
in the vineyard.
Yeah.
And it took if you're a stud, especially, that can be tough. If your ego's in the way and everything like that, but you're working for God, and this is what this owner or this company has asked you to do.
Yeah,
this is your job, like it or not. And if they want to pay them to do that over there, that's the way it is. And I think that's some of that what we're talking about is subverting that ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Carl, we have thrashed and trashed everything we can. If you can't do better in your lot in life after the last 2 shows, I ain't got nothing for you.
No, and I really do. I said it at the end of the first one. I still say that there's just a lot of meat here, a lot of solid stuff if you take it into the workplace. And always, you got to understand God's in control. A lot of the things we're talking about here is what you can do, and I believe God moves us to do certain things. If it's on your heart, the biggest thing is so many times people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
So hopefully, you know.
Yeah. So. All right, guys, we want to thank you. If we can help you in any way, again, I'll have you reach out to rocksolidfamilies.org or give the office a call, 812-576-7625. I want to thank our sponsors. I don't know if I thanked our sponsors at the front of our show here.
We were so anxious to get into it.
I'll say this quite. Thanks, Quality Auto Mart. Thanks, Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Thanks, 4Speed on 50. You guys get the drift there. So we want to be thankful. We also do want to thank our Lord and Savior. Yes. We want to thank the gifts that we have, the blessings we have, and the opportunity that we have. And I think, as you just said, like at the end of the day, we work for the Lord. And so, guys, I think that's all we got for you. Carl, you got anything?
No. Thank you for listening. If you listened this far, hopefully this helps you.
Yeah. So go out there and be a strong dad. Strong Dads wants to thank Quality Auto Mart and Service for being a proud sponsor of the Strong Dads podcast. Started in 1985 and going strong for all these years. Recently, Quality Auto Mart has transitioned from owners of Mark and Nancy Repke to longtime employee Fred and Lorene Venus. For all your automotive needs and golf cart needs, check out Quality Auto Mart, located across from Indian Lakes on Highway 46 outside of Batesville, Indiana. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.